All right, well, we will let people join as they can. If you are here now, welcome to the DELN November general meeting. Today, we are going to be welcoming Alice Lawson to discuss broadband consumer labels. First, I'm gonna, for those of you who might be new to DELN or this is your first meeting, we're just gonna kind of go over some basics here. DELN is the Digital Equity Learning Network of Seattle and King County. Um, as Alice presents, I'll go ahead and share some links in the chat so that you can access more information, such as our website, our membership sign-up form, and our LinkedIn. And what is DELN? DELN is a collaboration of community-based organizations, public-private institutions, and individuals who are invested in digital equity in our region. And we provide opportunities to connect to our local digital equity community by sharing resources, creating partnerships, and allow people to gain knowledge of best practices and also increase awareness for support for community efforts. And in general, what is digital equity or digital inclusion? Digital inclusion are the activities necessary to ensure that all individuals and communities, including the most disadvantaged, have access to and use of information and communication technologies. These include, but are not limited to, affordable, robust broadband internet service, internet-enabled devices that meet the needs of the user, access to digital literacy training, quality technical support, and applications and online content designed to enable and encourage self-sufficiency, participation, and collaboration. And how can you support DELN? If you are not already a member or signed up for our listserv, you are more than welcome, and I invite you to join us. Again, I will share any links in the chat as Alice is presenting, and certainly follow up with that information after this meeting as well. But again, you can participate in bi-monthly virtual meetings such as this. Our next one is in January, and on our listserv, we share important updates, important local updates. The Google form, again, I'll share out. And then also you can partner with DELN to advocate for more resources for digital equity. I'm available if you want to reach out for a one-on-one with me. I'm happy to meet with you and discuss kind of where you're at, how you can be involved or how we can be involved in your organization. Just reach out. I'll share my contact information if you don't have it already. And also, we're always looking for people to join our working groups. We have a steering committee, but we would like involved members in our advocacy and program planning committees. And once you fill out your membership form, we will list you and your organization on our website. All right, today, I can give a little bit more introduction to myself. I will give just a couple announcements and then we will hear from Alice Lawson with the City of Seattle and some Q&A. And if there's time, we'll have a couple breakout rooms. But my name is Catherine Van Henley. I am the program manager for DELN. I'm helping on a variety of levels to organize meetings such as these, coordinate them, and then also work with individual cities, or not cities, but yeah, well, cities within King County, and expanding our reach so that we can build our coalition. A couple announcements. Our last general meeting was in September, and since then we have had we held an event for Digital Inclusion Week, Gathering for Access and Equity. That was on October 10th. And I feel and got feedback that it was a big success. We had over 70 attendees and had a lot of topics to discuss throughout the day. It was a jam-packed agenda. And I think people were able to walk away with some really important knowledge or next steps. And in January, we will be having this general meeting will be about cybersecurity. And that's also going to be a focus of 2025 is cybersecurity skilling for digital navigators to bring back to their own communities, as well as cybersecurity preparedness for organizations. And I'm going to give a minute or two maybe to see if anyone else in the group has an announcement they might want to make to everyone here. You're welcome to raise your hand or take yourself off mute if you have anything to share. Okay, well, I am not hearing anything. So without further ado, let me introduce Alice Lawson, who is the Wireless Affairs Advisor with City of Seattle IT. And today she will be discussing broadband consumer labels and how this new tool can help with internet service decisions. Alice, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Welcome. You are welcome to share your screen.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, first off, let me say, everyone, I am, honored to be here to talk to you all. Let me just make sure I got the right one queued up. There we go. Okay, great. Everyone can see that. Honored to be here with all of you today as other people who are deeply committed to community and members of our community, and helping them bridge the various kinds of divides that they face and challenges they face to be part of our digital economy, and our digital ecosystem, I should say. It's not just economy. There's so many important ways that we have connectivity as in central in our lives. So today, what I wanted to share with all of you is about the broadband consumer labels, which are a relatively new offering and tool for all of us, so that you understand how it can support you and your clients. In making decisions around broadband usage. So just as general context, all of us are very familiar with food nutrition labels. And if you may be someone, I'm this kind of a person where I often grab a couple products and I put them side by side and I flip around and I look at the nutrition facts just to get an idea of what's in there, how do they compare to each other in terms of certain key elements of those products. Well, similar to that ability, now we've also got the ability to do it for broadband services. So there's labels available, just like peanut butter or Nutella is a product, broadband is a product, and different companies and different sizes of their products will give you different things for your money. So now we have labels to help us make that comparison shop. My goals for today, we have a half hour, and as you can imagine, anything we talk about with broadband can get in the weeds pretty quickly. So what I'm hoping today is have you leave with an awareness that these labels are available for use. And that's a very important starting point. I want you to be familiar with what you can find on the labels. So what kind of information is going to be there consistently, no matter which company you're looking at their label. I want to show you some examples of how those labels look similar but different. So you start to get comfortable with looking and comparing them, even though they might not be exactly like the template the FCC put together. I also want to help you get familiar with where you can find the labels. And then the last thing is raise your awareness about some other tools that are available to you for finding plan options. So when you want to compare plans and decide even what plan you might want or a client might want to consider, and then use that label to look at where do you find the different plans that are available in easy ways. I thought as a baseline vocabulary item, I should start by talking about what is broadband, because we talk about broadband labels as if everybody knows. Broadband is often used interchangeably with internet, but broadband itself is actually different. It's not the internet, it's the path we use to access the internet. And as a pathway, there's many different types of ways we can get there. They may be larger or narrower paths, faster, slower paths, and they may be fixed. So it's a path that comes right to our home or to our business, and we have to use it there. Or it might be a mobile path on the go, a wireless one that we can take with us and access the internet. So keep that in mind when you think about broadband consumer labels. We're talking about buying the path and the size of the path for getting your internet access. As a quick history on getting broadband labels, I feel like this is a major victory for us who are interested in consumer protection, because it took 15 years of work to get to where we are now, starting way back in 2009. And I'm not going to go into this in detail, but just you can see how it moved along slowly and stalled and got going again. This idea of having a way that customers could easily understand what their internet service, their broadband service offerings and options were, and compare them, has been out there and been advocated for a super long time. And it's April of this year, 2024, when these labels are now a requirement. So mobile and fixed broadband internet service providers have to provide these labels somewhere for us as consumers to look at and use when we're making our decisions. And on the far right of my slide here is the template that the FCC adopted to say, these are the elements that everyone's broadband labels have to have. So what I want to do next is take this template and just take it apart chunk by chunk to help you get comfortable with what you're always going to see. So the first element on the top is always going to tell you who the service provider is, what's the name of the plan that they're giving you information for, and is it a fixed or a mobile broadband option? Fixed, again, being it's a wire to a home, so that would be like a Comcast or an Astound or a CenturyLink line to a home or a business. Or is it mobile? So is it a T-Mobile hotspot? Is it a cell phone with some carrier providing that connectivity? Then they're going to give you the monthly price for that product. Importantly, this label requires them to tell us, is this monthly price the regular routine price, or is it an introductory price? Introductory means, is it a promotion? I'm trying to get new customers. I'm going to, flash around $10 a month for this great product. But really, after 6 months, I'm going to raise that price to $30 a month. So in this first part of the label, you're going to find information on, is it an introductory price? If so, how long are you going to get this cheaper price? What is the price going to go up to when it's the normal price? And then if there's any contract requirements with the product. So are you signing up in some long committed way for this specific service product? To give you a couple, so this is the template that the FCC, the elements are required, but I want to show you how it varies in practicality. So a couple examples, I'm going to use these same two throughout as we go down the fact sheet. This is an example from Comcast, which is a fixed broadband provider. And this is just one product I pulled from them called Connect More 300 megabits. So you can see how they're telling us the name of their company, the name of their service plan, that it's fixed, and then the monthly price. And then some more information down in there. They don't lay it out quite as clearly as the template, but all that information is in there that's required. And then a comparative example is this one from Verizon. So Verizon is a mobile broadband option, and they have a plan they call Unlimited Plus, and they're telling us it costs $90 a month. And then they give us that additional information. So in both cases, you can see now with these highlights, it's giving us, in the Comcast case, that $45 a month, that is an introductory price. So for 12 months, that's going to be the price. But after that, it's going to go up to $76 a month. And then the price they're saying also doesn't include, sometimes they'll give you a discount of $10 if you'll auto pay your bill or you'll go paperless. So these are some important areas to look at for really understanding what you're committing to, how much you're going to pay, and for how long. On the Verizon side with theirs, you can see that their price they're listing for this, not an introductory price. There's no contract required. So you're going to pay $90 a month, and it will stay $90 a month until there's some change that you make to your plan. Okay, so moving back to the label now, we have that first section. The next section we're going to look at is the kind of the mid chunk section. And this is the one where, just like the base price is super important for us as consumers to know before we make a purchase, there's a lot of additional charges and fees that can be associated with broadband broadband and telecommunication services. So the companies, again, are required to give us ideas of what are some of those additional fees. So if you can imagine, like the top half of the card really is about what is it going to cost us to get this and having knowledge about that. So as an example, again, bringing the Comcast one back in, this now is the section of their broadband label that talks about additional charges for that Connect More product. And they're saying that it's $0 for the modem you would need to use that, but they're again noting that it's a promotional price. And so after 12 months, that's going to cost you $15 a month to have that modem. And then they're also down low with installation fees. There's some options how you have it installed. They have different prices associated with them. They tell you that if you're going to have late payments as a customer, how much your late payment fee would be. And then they bundle in the government taxes as varies by location. Usually with a carrier, if you put your actual address in, if you're ready to pull the trigger on a certain product, then they'll know more specifically your address and they can probably tell you more detail about those taxes and fees. But this is the area where you got all those secondary charges. With the Verizon example, you can see how it looks different. As a mobile provider, they've got a different set of, they don't have a modem or a gateway fee because you're using your cell phone to do it. But they do have some other federal fees and things like that they tack on. They have just an activation fee of $35. They tell you what the late fee will be. They tell you if there's no early termination fees if you want to end your product, your service sooner. They also do the government varies by location. And then both of them tell you toward the bottom that there are discounts that are possibly available on this product that have to do with, again, do you do paperless billing? Do you do auto pay? Do you bundle this service with something else? So they're going to point you to where you can find more information about those options. All right, and these are just some of the highlights of, where they are being specific and the kind of things as we read these labels, we want to read them carefully to make sure we really understand, what we're going to be paying and when. So our next element of the label, this is where we get into really what we're buying. So up the top is how much we're going to have to pay. And then this is where I consider kind of the meat and potatoes. When we're talking about an internet connection, we want an internet connection that is going to be as fast and reliable as possible. And when it comes to speeds, I like this little icon because I feel like it's a good analogy for how to think about internet speeds. It's kind of like driving a car. How big of an engine, or how good is your gas? How fast are you going to be able to go with this service that you're buying? And so this upload and download and latency speeds that they have to tell us about are what are giving us those indicators for the product. As an example, again, the Comcast Connect product, they're telling us that their typical download speed, and download is going to be the speed and the quickness with which, when you ask for information from the internet, you want to go to a website, you want it to bring that information down to your home, your laptop, your phone, how quickly that's going to happen, as well as the upload speed, how fast you're going to be able to upload things. So the higher the speeds you've got there, then the faster those kinds of back and forth communications are going to go. When it comes to the mobile operator with Verizon, you can see a lot more information about the speeds in here. And what they're doing is telling you, depending what kind of network you're operating on with them will depend how those speeds are. So they've got their 5G ultra wideband, they've got just 5G, they've got 4G. But what's really important for you to look at is those megabits per second, Mbps, because that's the higher that number, then the more speed you're getting, the more you're getting for your money, basically, and buying the product. And so comparing the fixed one with Comcast to the mobile one, you can see there's a big difference. There's a range you would have to live with the mobile. You'd get that consistent 350, which is a very fast speed from the Comcast product. On the upload side, so how fast you're going to be able to communicate up with the internet. So that would be something like this, where I'm communicating my video signal right now to be able to present to you. The upload speed for Comcast is basically 10 times higher, roughly, than the mobile one. Now, it's not to say that the mobile range is not going to be sufficient for what you need, but it's just the idea that if these plans are both exactly the same price and either of them would meet your needs, you would want to buy the one that had the higher speeds. And then the last thing I'll note here is this concept of latency. And I have these little notes so for the slide deck to be hopefully a good reference for you later. Latency has to do with the time it takes for your signal to kind of get up and reach the endpoint you're trying to reach. And so that's a term that people like to use as lag. If you have to wait for the signals to reach each other to even begin to communicate, that's the latency. So in a fixed connection, like Comcast offers, that's always going to be a much lower one than a wireless connection. And that's because that wireless connection has more to do to try to even reach that endpoint to begin with. So in the case of the comparison again in these two, again, 16 milliseconds for the Comcast, but it's a base of 37 for the wireless one. These are really still very, very small amounts. There's no plan that's not going to have any lag. But again, the smaller the number, the lower the latency number in this case is the higher quality connection you're going to have. And so you want to look for lower numbers there when you're comparing. All right, moving on down. So after we talk about the speed of our connectivity and the capacity with which we can communicate back and forth. Now we're going to talk about the data that's included with the plan. So I like to think of these as the megabits per second. The speed, again, is about how fast it's moving, and the data, or the megabits or gigabits, is how much you get to use. And so this is another really, really important part of a plan, especially when we're talking about people who are using, for example, a cell phone connection as their primary source of internet connectivity, because every time they're going to a web page or they're uploading or downloading a photo or streaming video, they are using data to do that. And so how much of that they can do before their plan is going to say, you can't do any more, or we're going to slow you down, or we're going to charge you more, is a factor people need to consider. So with our examples, the fixed connection with Comcast, they have it set up so they'll give 1.2 terabytes. Terabytes is a tremendously large number. The way the scale goes, it's megabyte, gigabyte, terabyte. So it's very large. Very few people, other than really heavy users or many, many heavy users in one household, are going to, really maybe, I shouldn't say many, a few heavy users in one household could reach that data cap. But that's where they have that at Comcast. They're telling you up front, if you go beyond that, then you are either going to have to pay them a little bit more to get another chunk of data during that month, or if you don't ever want to worry about it, you think you're a heavy user, you could pay them an extra $30 a month and then just have it be unlimited. So again, you're going in kind of understanding the parameters you have for your usage capacity. On the mobile side with Verizon, they are telling us that the actual data, so interacting with the internet for with your cell phone, is unlimited. They're not going to tell you you have a cap on it. And they're not going to charge anything extra because it's unlimited. But they do also mention that they've got on this plan specifically a 30 gigabit hotspot. And I just want to highlight that this is another important factor when it comes to having a mobile connection. Our mobile connections through either if it's a hotspot or generally it's our cell phones, are for that device and how much we're going to use that device. But having a hotspot capacity means I could use my cell phone device to then be the internet connection for another device. So a common way people might use that is to use their cell phone to be a hotspot for their laptop, so they can actually work on their laptop and interact with the internet that way. So if somebody wants to be doing that, then they want to be looking at, well, how much gigabit capacity are they going to get a month to do that hotspot work? And that's what that's where you're going to find that element is down in the data included. All right, so the first parts of our label tell us how much we have to pay. the middle part tells us what we're getting for that, and the lower parts kind of get into administration. Not something most people want to spend a lot of time reading about, but it's important to know, especially when you get to that place of maybe your final plan you're going to buy. What are the privacy policies that they have in place to protect your data and to protect the interactions you have with them and their service? What are their network management policies? That would be important if you have a plan, a cellular plan, say, where you don't have unlimited data. And that network management policy might tell you that after a certain amount of data, you can still use the internet through your phone, but it's going to be slower. We're going to slow you down. So things like that would be in their network management. And then they have to give their information about where their customers support and how you reach them. So here is the example of how that looks on the Comcast and on the Verizon example. Pretty standard. And all of this that I've been using has been web-based. So finding these labels on the web, interacting with these labels on the web, so that these links are obviously active to take us to more information. These companies are also required to have these at what's called point of sale. So if you are going into an actual store, a Verizon store, a Comcast store, some other store that's selling broadband services, Metro Connect or something, they are supposed to also have these labels on site there. So you can, the concept that the labels and the Federal Communications Commission has is that you as a consumer have the right to see this information and understand it all before you make any kind of a purchase. And the very, very last part of the label at the bottom is telling you the authority for these labels and the requirements is coming from the federal government under the Communications Commission. That gives you a link to where you can find more information about the consumer protection they have for you there. And then the plan identifier, that's going to be different on every label because that is their unique code that they've made. So Comcast made a certain plan identifier for their Connect More plan. Verizon made it for their Unlimited Plus plan. And you can see that in the very bottom if you'd ever need to reference it for some reason, maybe if you want to file a complaint or something with the FCC. All right, so after going through what those look like, what elements you're going to have in any broadband label, just wanted to show you some examples of how they look and how they're very similar, but they do vary, just so you can start to get comfortable with looking at them and saying, all right, these look a little bit different, but I know at the top is my pricing, then there's the charges, then I get my discounts and bundles, then I get my data, my speeds. In this case, it's interesting because Comcast flipped it and put their data and their speeds lower versus the speeds first, then the data. But it's still all of that kind of important product quality information is always going to be after the pricing. And again, the important part at the top is, what's the name of it and what are they offering under that plan, so that if you are trying to compare plans together, you know that you're getting close to similar plans for what they're going to deliver to you in terms of speeds or data capacity. And then you can start to compare the pricing and see how you're going to get the most for your money. I wanted to just highlight this one from Comcast because this is an example on their website for finding their broadband labels. That we go to the website and each of the little white boxes there is a different plan that they have. So clicking on each one will give the broadband label for that plan. But they also have these upper headers of standard, internet essentials, and then prepaid. So there's another sections, tab heads you can click on to get more information if you were interested in comparing prepaid plans. Or in this case, a popular plan for a lot of our low-income residents is the Internet Essentials program, because it is a home internet product that's fixed and it is low cost. And so this is an example of what that Internet Essentials card looks like. And just, you can see again, price. In this case, there's not a lot of additional charges associated with it because Comcast under this program has tried to make it affordable for our low-income residents. And these are some examples of wireless providers. So again, all the wireless and all the wired internet service providers, broadband providers have to provide these labels. And so I just pulled a representative batch out. T-Mobile and Verizon are both what you call large primary carriers. They own and they build and they maintain the cellular systems that all the mobile technology is going over. And then there's hundreds of what they call them virtual mobile operators who buy access on the T-Mobile, the Verizon, the AT&T systems, and to sell services to people. Those are the companies that often will offer lower cost plans, but those are some like Mint Mobile and Cricket and many others. So hopefully with all that, now you start to get some familiarity with how those labels look. A next natural question is, well, how would I even know how much, speed that I'm going to need if I'm trying to compare products? So for that, these are very individualized conversations. A person, a household has to ask, how much am I really going to use either my fixed home internet or my cellular mobile internet in different ways, and to understand, am I going to buy a product that's going to meet my needs? Or if I only have so much money to spend, which product can I get that's going to give me the most for that? So this is a great tool, which is a generalized way of looking at some estimates around internet usage and speed capacities from a household capacity, just looking at it from how many people are in your household. This is from the Education Superhighway, which I think probably many of you have been introduced to in different ways because they're a terrific consumer-oriented organization at the national level. It's doing great work with helping people get connected. This postcard that they have to help people understand and maybe figure out what their needs might be. They also have it in different languages. So if you go to their website link I have here, you could print it out in all those different languages. And then another example to find as a reference is one where it gets a little more specific. So rather than just saying, well, I've got 2 people in my household, so I'll go for a 100 megabit plan. This might be where you try to build together, how much am I actually doing certain kinds of activities? And what do those activities require in terms of internet capacity? And then I can kind of like build it up that way. And in this tool that I found, this is actually a static table, but this CNET article has a lot of good information around how to make those choices. And one of the things they talk about that I think is important for us all to know is, for example, web browsing. While it may only literally technically take 3 or 5 megabits to do some web browsing, there are a lot of other variables that go into how our internet connection can be affected at any one time. If somebody else is on it, if we're using it over Wi-Fi, so maybe it's a little lessened because we're farther away from the original signal. For all those reasons, they recommend padding a little bit and what you might need for those areas to give you some variability for those other kinds of conditions that might impact your connectivity. So that was estimating this kind of the speeds, megabits per second. How fast do you think you need to be able to go, depending on what you're doing? So these are some resources for estimating how much data you might need, so that how much you might be using it in terms of, we talk about those data caps, or if you had a hotspot, how much data. And so this tool is one, again, that gives some estimates in a broad way. If you're a light user, or a medium, a heavy, or an extreme user, it does talk about different common things people are doing on the internet. And these are monthly estimates. So if you're a light user in all these ways, you might need a minimum 29 megabit plan. But if you're a heavy user, you want at least a 1 gigabit plan. And these would be monthly estimates based on one user. And then a more robust tool, again, if you want to get really specific and start to play around with it, I really like this one from Wirefire, where it's an interactive tool. So on the left here, each of these little drop-down menus, email, streaming, web, download, social media, if you click on them, it's going to give you the ability to use a dial to say how much you're really using or interacting with the internet that way. And they allow you to do it by week or by month. And then once you put those little factors in there and then you reset the calculator, it gives you that estimated monthly total at the top. So those are some nice references if somebody really feels like I have just no idea how to even know what I need. Now, where to find the broadband consumer labels? A quick and dirty way, depending if the company is one maybe you haven't heard of before or something, or is new to you, just do an internet search using the company name and the word term broadband label. So Mint Mobile broadband label, CenturyLink broadband label, and then that should start to get you the results to get you close to where they have theirs. I've put in here links to some of the common ones we have around the area. So we've got our 3 primary fixed broadband providers in Seattle: Comcast, Astound, and Quantum. And then I put the primary cellular operators: Verizon, AT&T, Mobile. But I've also put in here some ways you can compare multiple wireless companies together. The reason why I think this is important is, again, a lot of our lower income residents can't afford the plans that are in the Verizon, AT&T, Mobile category, because they generally don't try to have really super low cost plans. Instead, they rely on all those other companies, at least their network, to provide those lower cost plans. So these tools, these 3 different tools here, where you can compare multiple companies, will often show you a lot more of those secondary companies like Assurance Wireless, Straight Talk, US Mobile. There's so many of them. I just put a few that I feel like are kind of out and talked about a lot. And these sites give you, similar to the other tool that I showed you, where you can put in some indicators and try to get an idea of, narrow down the plans. I only want to see plans that would give me enough if I have 2 devices on it. I want to use this much phone, this much text, this much data. And then a couple notes on these sites is these are commercial sites, right? They're not nonprofits. The companies pay for advertising. I don't know how they monetize, where they're getting their content. But my experience with them has been that not all of them offer plans from every company. So you might see 12, 14 different companies in the comparative options one of these shows, but if you go to another one of their sites, you might see a different mix of them. So it's good to use more than one of these, depending on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to understand and get comfortable with, just so you're seeing lots of different companies and not just assuming these are the only ones. All right. And this is just, I want to show you really quickly an example. So this Up Phone site, how they have the tool at the top. You can put the number of lines you have, how much data you want, how many minutes. You can choose unlimited or not. You can put all these variables here. You can also do the drop-down menus to say if you had a certain carrier you're interested in, certain features, certain pricing constraints, certain contract, no contract, 1-year contract, all those kinds of things. And then once you put those in there and you say hit results, it will have narrowed down for you a whole bunch of companies that can meet those parameters. And then that's where you really start with saying, okay, I can see what they're charging. And then from each of those, you go to the view plan and you find their broadband label to know all the detail. So in this case, there was 49 results based on what I put in there. And I sorted it by most popular. You can also sort by lowest priced, highest priced. So these are just really nice dynamic tools to work with if somebody really doesn't have an idea of what they want to do, or they just want to double check. I've got so much money to spend. What's the best I can get for that money? All right. So as a wrap up, I just want to say, just again, as we started, we got really comfortable with using nutrition labels. I hope we're all going to get equally comfortable with broadband labels, and have them help us make sure we're getting the most for our money, and helping our clients understand and get the most also for theirs. One of the realities in the space of internet connectivity is the terminology, and even as we talked about today, like these speed level ranges and things, it doesn't mean very much to a common person. They don't know it. It's not part of their daily life. So they're very susceptible to overbuying and to potentially paying more than they need to get what they need in terms of connectivity. So I'm an advocate that using these broadband labels is a way to try to help counter that and have people not spend more than they need necessarily for their broadband services, not take the first cheapest plan they see without understanding that, hey, I could have that same price but get 5 gigabits more of data if I go to this other company. Before, that was really hard to do, and now it's a lot easier with these labels. All right. One thing before we do full questions, I just want to go down and show you after my thank you in this slide deck. I've included a couple slides, one that talks a little more about the data size, data caps, unlimited, just kind of some high level information for reference. And then the same thing with the bandwidth, since those are kind of key terms in terms of understanding products. But with that, I am open for any questions.
Alice, thank you so much. That was some really valuable information there. And just to note too, we'll help share out the PowerPoint so that you know, all the links that are contained there, and we can share that out so you have access to it, to the membership. Yeah, like Alice said, I'd like to invite anyone who might have any questions or comments. I know, let me see here. David, you had mentioned that the differences in the labels will make it harder to develop a collect and comparison app. Did that get addressed with some of the the websites that you shared about how to kind of compare the plans? I think one of,
So, yeah, I would say that one of the things that you'll find is if you have the same company, it's easy to compare within them with the
Mhm.
plans. But with the different companies, it is definitely a little bit more challenging. So, I feel like the work will be trying to help someone understand what they're going for in terms of their budget or what their needs are in terms of like, speed, capacity, those kinds of things, and then trying to find the companies and compare to see what are they each charging for it. There isn't one other than even those ones tools I showed you where you could see a whole bunch of options at once. You still have to go to each plan's website to see their label. So that is definitely a barrier. I have seen that some of the larger companies have an ability for it wouldn't be an average user, but if maybe some organization wanted to download all of their plans as a CSV file, so like an Excel spreadsheet, and try to do something to compare them that way, that's possible. But again, that was company specific. I haven't done any research to see, could that potentially be done and start to join them all together. But I do think that these are relatively new being in April and people are still getting comfortable with understanding they're out there and they can use them. So maybe this is something we can do with some of our national groups, maybe NDIA or Education Superhighway or something like that, and start talking about how might we develop tools that could show labels, side by side in some way.
I have a question for you. Are the labels available in any other languages other than English?
So that would be website specific. So does the company have an option on the website to change the language you're viewing it in? That would be the way to do it. My review of all the different companies is they don't have like when I'm looking at it, it's all showing up in English. But now I should have done that, and I apologize that I didn't, to look and say, oh, what would it be if I'm doing this with Google? Let me just have it all be showing to me in Amharic or in Tagalog or something like that. But generally, that's the way these things start: is they have to just use whatever the translator is from the platform you're using to access the internet. And I will follow up on that though and circle back. I can circle back with the network and let you all know, are there some easy ways within some of the carriers, or is it, what's the general recommendation for trying to get things in alternate languages for your clients?
Thank you. And speaking of clients, I guess this question would be for the audience today. For those of you working with your community or closely with clients, um, maybe if you could give us an idea of how often or some experience with your clients coming to you for questions about labels or internet speeds, data usage, things like that. If anyone has any experience to share, that I think that would be helpful. It doesn't sound like it. Okay, let me check the chat one more time.
One thing I'd ask too while we're asking that kind of a question, here in our digital equity team, we're always really curious with what do we find are the common companies that our lower income residents are engaging with for their services. Is it common that people are doing, companies that are marketing a lot to them, or are, for example, Assurance Wireless or Mint Mobile or something like that, or are they deferring to ones where they've got it in the neighborhood? There's a little storefront in the neighborhood. That would be so helpful because there's so many out there that if we knew a little more about what the primary ones are that our Seattle residents are really relying on, then we could work a little more closely with those companies and see what kind of resources we could get to help support them there versus trying to have something that could cover the hundreds that exist.
It sounds like a good data collection project for sure. Okay, and looks like Jessica also shared in the chat another a location finder to see what ISPs are in your area.
Right.
And then she also noted that the Comcast Internet Essential Plan is going to increase to $14.95 starting in January 1st, but they also increased the speed, looks like, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, and David, I'm looking at your comment and really thinking about that. That is, it took us 15 years to get these labels. And I feel like it's definitely not mission accomplished because even though it gives something for us to be able to use and compare and support consumers with, it the companies you can see are using them so differently that where they put them on their websites, where you have to click to get them. I think I forgot to mention some of the companies, when you go to their broadband label website, they want you to enter an address and then they'll show you the service plans and the options. Other ones, you can just see it right away. So there's still a lot of variability, which is always a barrier, for people finding this information. I'm really thankful for all of you who are on the line today, assuming a lot of you are digital navigators and working closely with the community, because I think, like anything else, it's going to take us that maybe see these more, a little more comfortable with these to help the others learn how to navigate it and get comfortable with it too. Or maybe they won't. Maybe they're only doing this decision once every 3 years. And so they're just going to rely on a digital navigator friend to help them know. But as a digital navigator, maybe you're working with them more like monthly just because of the interactions you're having with clients. So you're going to get more comfortable with them.
I can just, Alice, yeah, good point on this too. I did find it looks like the FCC did require machine readable labels,
Oh, okay.
so that could help over time. I'll put that link in, as well as the broadband labels glossary. So maybe that will help with the comparison. The one other thing, just thought your comments might be helpful about is around what happens with bundled packages. So labeling for the broadband speed, if I'm looking at a bundled package from a company, including like cell and broadband together or with cable and so on.
So the way the labels are set up is they are specific to a broadband package. And then they're saying, if you want to look at other discounts, look at this bundle. And then within that bundle, you're going to have to look and see what's the internet offering in there. So the bundle might be, for example, with internet, they might have internet, or I think it was Connect More or something is the name of their 300 megabit service, bundled with phone and TV or something would cost so much. So the price might change, but the actual service delivery and those kind of things are the same in terms of the megabits and the data allowances.
So if
I
I'm,
didn't find a card. If you're asking David with a bundle that shows a bundle, I
yeah,
did not find that card. Instead, what they're doing is saying you have to, for discounts, basically look into bundling, you'll get a discount on the price.
so if I'm helping a client, it may be harder to pull out the specific price just for the internet because you'll get a bundle cost from the company. But I could almost have a blank template to fill out the speeds and the other pieces, or use that to ask the company questions about that bundle.
Yeah. I mean, again, the bundles normally list what their internet part of that is. So that would be the part to know is like, what is just like the companies will have bundled, but they also have standalone. So what is it first called standalone? And then what is it, bundled with? And that's an interesting question because the bundling normally, for one, that would normally presume the fixed home internet, where they might bundle with things like telephone and TV and home security and things like that. Those are all really, really expensive products. So I definitely was viewing these labels from the point of view of people that are going to be able to get an internet connection and then use their internet connection, whether it's their cell phone. That's going to be their primary driver of their budget. Yeah. Versus trying to bundle to get those other products in there. And this is a good time to clarify, David. I appreciate you mentioning bundling. Comcast, for example, advertises their wireless phones a lot. So they've got a product that's wireless phones, but you have to be an internet or otherwise a customer of them of another product to get that. So that's something to keep in mind too, is like, which products do you have to buy? And some of those details should be in the broadband label if there was something that said you had to do one thing or another in order to have this price or product. That should be in the detail of that upper section of like the price conditions. Oh, Jessica, yeah, I see you're about the hotspots. Mhm. And are you wondering anything about that, or is that just a comment in terms of the like the kind of capacity they get for the when they're using the library lent hotspots?
Just a comment
Okay.
to your question of what providers are being used by our students.
Oh, good. Thanks.
Mhm. And they've been reliable.
Yeah, the primary carriers are generally the most reliable because it is their network and they prioritize their customers first. Um, so when they're subleasing it, it's not to say that they're not trying to give a good product to those sublease also, but if all things equal, there are some network policies there where, for example, Cricket mobile might get a customer might get deprioritized in a very dense, congested area where everyone's trying to get on the I can't remember now if they're on say they're on the T-Mobile system, T-Mobile network at the same time, they would get deprioritized over the T-Mobile customers. Well, if anyone has any questions you can think of afterwards, please feel free to reach out to me. Again, even though my title is Wireless Affairs, I'm a digital equity advisor, with, formerly, colleague of our wonderful David Keys, and a colleague along with John Morrison Winters and Brenda Tate, Delia Burke, and Mira Zhao. So, all of us together, we would like to field your questions and try to give you the tools you need from a trusted source. So we can try to do the legwork for you. And so please just reach out whenever you need. And we'll share the slide deck.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again, Alice. Very informative. And I hope that everyone walked away with something to share with their community. I will be sharing the link to this video within the week. And then also I'll share out the slides that Alice has. Remember to follow us on LinkedIn if you have not already. I shared the link there, as well as some other information. So yeah, if no one has any other questions or comments, let me just check here. Okay, no more questions. I hope everyone has a good rest of their Thursday, and if you are struggling with power or service, I hope it's restored to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. We appreciate you pulling us together.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Take
Thank you.
care.
Thanks a lot,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Everyone stay well.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.